81 days. That is how long Nancy Guthrie has been missing. No arrest. No named suspect. No confirmed location. Just a doorbell camera image of a masked armed man on her porch, a man investigators have now officially nicknamed Porch Guy. But this week, something shifted. Something that one of America's leading genetic genealogists called, and I am quoting her directly here, the piece of information that could solve this case. A single strand of hair. Rootless. Microscopic. And potentially the most powerful piece of evidence in this entire investigation. Stay with me, because what is happening right now in the Nancy Guthrie case is unlike anything we have seen in the past 11 weeks. Before we get into the DNA breakthrough, let's quickly reset for anyone just joining this case. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, one of the most recognizable faces in American morning television. Nancy lived quietly in Tucson, Arizona, a peaceful retirement in the desert. But on the morning of February 1, 2026, everything changed. Her family discovered she was missing and called police. Investigators arrived to find something deeply disturbing: blood on the front porch. Not a small amount. Enough to indicate serious violence had occurred right at the entrance of her home. A Nest doorbell camera had captured what happened. An armed, masked individual had appeared at Nancy's front door that morning. This person was carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker backpack. Their face was completely hidden. Their identity, unknown. The FBI's Phoenix field office was brought in almost immediately. This was no longer just a local missing persons case. This was a federal investigation. And from day one, the forensic evidence has been the centerpiece of every breakthrough and every setback that has followed. Here is where the case gets genuinely complicated. Investigators collected multiple DNA samples from Nancy's home, and each one told a different story. The blood found on the front porch? That was confirmed to belong to Nancy herself. That confirmed the violence. That confirmed something terrible happened right at that doorstep. Then investigators found a black glove approximately 2 miles from the residence. It appeared to match the type of glove worn by the masked suspect on the doorbell camera. DNA was extracted from that glove. It was run through CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database that holds genetic profiles from convicted offenders and arrestees across the country. The result? No match. The DNA from the glove did not match any known criminal in the system. Then there was a mixed DNA sample collected from inside the home. And this one became a forensic headache. Experts believe this sample contains genetic material from 3 or more people. It was too complex, too fragmented to develop a clean profile suitable for database comparison. The lab hit a wall. A partial, mixed sample with contributions from multiple unknown individuals, including at least one male, but not enough to point a finger at anyone specific. So going into this week, investigators had blood, a glove with unmatched DNA, and a degraded mixed sample. Significant evidence, but nothing that had produced a name. And then came the hair. Fox News Digital reported this week, citing sources familiar with the investigation, that the FBI has now received DNA evidence recovered from Nancy Guthrie's home, including test results from a hair sample. And here is something important that the FBI confirmed directly to ABC News. This hair was not newly discovered. It was collected back in February, right at the beginning of the investigation. For 11 weeks it was being analyzed by a private lab in Florida used by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. And now, that same original hair sample has been transferred to the FBI laboratory itself for advanced testing. That transfer is the development. That escalation is the signal. This is a separate piece of evidence from everything that had been processed before. And it is being treated as potentially the most significant forensic development in the entire case. Now, here is where we need to talk about science, because what makes this hair sample so important is something that most people do not know. This appears to be a rootless hair. And for decades, rootless hair was considered almost useless in forensic investigations. Without the root, without the follicle attached, scientists could not extract the kind of nuclear DNA that CODIS is built around. So rootless hair was collected, logged, and largely set aside. But the science has changed dramatically. New technology can now extract what are called SNP profiles, single nucleotide polymorphisms, from the shaft of a rootless hair. This does not require the root at all. And those SNP profiles can be fed into investigative genetic genealogy, the same technique that cracked the Golden State Killer case. The same approach that Cece Moore and her team at Parabon Nanolabs have used to solve hundreds of cold cases across the country. And Cece Moore herself is now publicly talking about the Nancy Guthrie hair sample. This week she said, and I want you to hear this clearly, hair absolutely can make the case solvable. So I'm really excited. She added that rootless hair DNA opens up many thousands of cases for being able to finally be solved that don't have any other type of DNA evidence. She has personally helped law enforcement solve 6 cases using rootless hair alone. If that hair does not belong to Nancy, does not belong to a family member, does not belong to a known visitor, if it belongs to Porch Guy, this case is no longer unsolvable. Let's talk about the man at the center of everything. The FBI has been careful with their language. They have officially described the individual on the doorbell camera as a suspect. Here is what investigators know about Porch Guy from the footage alone. He is male. He stands approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall. He has an average build. He was carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker backpack, a specific product that investigators traced to Walmart stores in the Tucson area. Surveillance footage from those stores was reviewed. Purchase records were examined. This was painstaking, frame-by-frame work designed to connect a specific backpack to a specific transaction and potentially to a specific person. His face was completely covered. The FBI enhanced and analyzed the footage extensively. Physical characteristics were cataloged, but the masking was thorough enough to prevent any direct identification from the video alone. And now we have this hair, collected from inside Nancy's home back in February, now sitting inside the FBI's own laboratory, with the world's leading investigative genetic genealogist saying publicly that she is excited about what it could mean. Here is what the process looks like from this point forward, and why Cece Moore is also saying it could take months. First, the FBI lab examines the hair to determine whether it could belong to Nancy, a family member, or any known individual who had access to the home. If it does, the lead ends there. But if it does not match any known person, that is when things get very interesting. The sample would then go to a specialized lab. Moore mentioned Estrella Forensics specifically for rootless hair SNP extraction. This process is delicate. It requires clean, uncontaminated material. Cece Moore noted that contamination is a real concern, but she added that modern forensic labs have that process well under control. Once an SNP profile is developed, analysts upload it to consumer DNA databases, the same ones people use for ancestry research. They look for familial matches, distant cousins, second cousins, third cousins, people who share enough genetic material with the unknown suspect to begin building a family tree. From that tree, investigators work backward, cross-referencing census records, obituaries, geographic data, until they can narrow down a pool of candidates who fit the physical profile and the geography of the crime. Then traditional investigative work takes over. Surveillance, DNA confirmation, a warrant, an arrest. This is exactly how the Golden State Killer was caught after decades of cold case status. And Moore has said directly, if this hair belongs to the person who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie, it will solve this case. Before we close, 2 things from this past week that every person following this case needs to know. First, on Friday, April 18th, social media was flooded with claims that a new person of interest had been detained in Tucson. It spread across X and aggregator sites, drawing tens of thousands of views within hours. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos was asked directly by Fox News reporter Michael Ruiz. His answer was one word: nope. Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, the former FBI special agent who has been one of the most credible voices throughout this case, also corroborated the denial on X. No arrest, no detention, no bombshell. The confusion had started when the sheriff's department posted about a completely different missing woman named Nancy Radakovich. One post, thousands of misleading shares. This is the information environment this family is navigating every single day. Second, and this one is harder to explain away. On April 15th, during a live broadcast of the Today Show, Savannah Guthrie opened an interview with actress Anne Hathaway. Then the show cut to a commercial break. When it came back, Savannah was gone. Hoda Kotb had taken her seat without any explanation from the network. Savannah briefly reappeared at the end of the show, but NBC said nothing about the switch. No statement. No on-air acknowledgement. Nothing. Whether that moment meant something or nothing, it reminded every person watching that this family is carrying a weight that does not stop just because the cameras are rolling. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She was taken from her own home by a masked man carrying a backpack on a quiet Sunday morning in Tucson, Arizona. Her daughter stood at the anchor desk of the Today Show and delivered the morning news to millions of Americans who had no idea what that family was carrying. Now, 11 weeks later, a strand of hair, collected in February, transferred to the FBI's own laboratory, may be what brings this case to resolution. Science has advanced to a point where rootless hair can tell us not just who a person is, but who their family is, where they come from, what region of the country their relatives have lived in for generations. Porch Guy does not know whether he left a hair behind. He does not know whether that hair has been sitting in a lab for 11 weeks and is now inside the FBI laboratory. He does not know that Cece Moore, the woman who helped identify the Golden State Killer, is watching this case and calling the hair evidence exciting. But investigators know. And the labs know. And now, this case is not cold. It is not stalled. It is moving at the pace of science, which is slower than we want but more precise than almost anything else law enforcement has at its disposal. We will continue covering every verified development as it comes. If this video gave you a clearer picture of where this investigation actually stands, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone following the Nancy Guthrie case. This is True Crime Files. We do not chase rumors. We follow the evidence.